to ensure that we are not continuing to try to impose a military solution on what is essentially a political problem in Iraq. And that's why I put forward a bill that would begin a phased redeployment and have all our troops out by March 31st of next year.
I'm going to come to Governor Richardson in a moment, but Senator Edwards, where, if at all, do you disagree with any of your Democratic colleagues, Democratic candidates, on this issue of the troops, the funding of the war, how to get out?
Well, I think it's the difference between leading and following. I think Hillary's right. All of us do want to end this war. But I have made very clear from the outset that the way to end the war is for the Congress to use its constitutional authority to fund. They should send the bill to the President with a timetable for withdrawal, which they did. The President vetoed, then it came back, and then there was the moment of truth. And I said throughout the lead up to this vote that I was against a funding bill that did not have a timetable for withdrawal, that it was critical for the Congress to stand firm. They were given a mandate by the American people. And others on this stage, Chris Dodd spoke out very loudly and clearly, but I want to finish this. Others did not. Others were quiet. They went quietly to the floor of the Senate, cast the right vote, but there is a difference between leadership and legislature.
You want to name names?
No, I think it's obvious who I'm talking about.
It is to me, but it might not be to some of the viewers.
Senator Clinton and Senator Obama did not say anything about how they were going to vote until they appeared on the floor of the Senate, voted. They were among the last people to vote. And I think that the importance of this is, they cast the right vote, and I applaud them for that. But the importance of this is, they're asking to be President of the United States. And there is a difference between making clear, speaking to your followers, speaking to the American people about what you believe needs to be done. And I think all of us have a responsibility to lead on these issues, not just on Iraq, but on health care, on energy, on all the other issues.
I'm going to give both of them a chance to respond to you, Senator Obama.
Well, look, I think it is important to lead. And I think, John, the fact is that I opposed this war from the start. So you were about 4.5 years late on leadership on this issue. I think it's important not to play politics on something that is as critical and as difficult as this. Now, the fact of the matter is, Joe has a legitimate perspective. It is not easy to vote for cutting off funding because the fact is there are troops on the ground. I'll let Hillary speak for herself, but the fact of the matter is that all of us exercised our best judgment, just as we exercised our best judgment to authorize or not authorize this war. I think it's important for us to be clear about that.
All right, Senator.
Well, and I think it's important, excuse me, particularly to point out this is George Bush's war. He is responsible for this war. He started the war, he mismanaged the war, he escalated the war, and he refuses to end the war. And what we are trying to do, whether it's by speaking out from the outside or working and casting votes that actually make a difference from the inside, we are trying to end the war. And each of us has made that very clear. We have different approaches. I have a 3-step plan to bring the troops home starting now, put pressure on the Iraqi government to take responsibility and cut off aid when they won't, and engage in intensive diplomacy regionally and internationally. The differences among us are minor. The differences between us and the Republicans are major, and I don't want anybody in America to be confused.
Senator Edwards respond. Are the differences minor between you and these Democratic candidates?
There are differences between us, and I think Democratic voters deserve to know the differences between us. I think there is a difference between making very clear when the crucial moment comes on Congress ending this war what your position is, and standing quiet. That's all I'm saying. All right. They eventually voted the right way. I respect them for voting the right way. But there are important differences between us on this, and the voters are entitled to know that.
Let me let Senator Dodd, he voted against the funding as well. Senator?
Well, first of all, let me thank John Edwards for the nice compliment. I appreciate that in the midst of all of this. Well, the first responsibility and the first priority of an American president is to keep our country safe and secure. This policy in Iraq has failed. It is a civil war in that country. Everyone who's looked at this issue has drawn the conclusion that there is no military solution to it. It seems to me then it's incumbent upon us, given the fact that we are less safe, less secure, more vulnerable, weaker today, not stronger as a result of this policy, that we ought to try to bring it to a close. And so I thought the right thing to do was to pursue and push this issue of having a date certain tied to funding. Very, very important, so that we have the ability to move beyond this. This war has caused many casualties. not the least of which are our troops, obviously, but also the foreign policy. Your first question on terror has been directly affected because of this policy in Iraq.
Governor Richardson, I want Governor Richardson to weigh in because I know you've been very, very concerned about what's happening with the genocide in Darfur. What if some of the critics, some of the supporters of this war are right, and a unilateral, quick U.S. withdrawal from Iraq, and you want troops out by the end of this year, does lead not only to an increased civil war, but to genocide in Iraq? What moral responsibility does the United States have to deal with that scenario?
I've spent a lot of time in this region. I was UN ambassador. 80% of my time was spent on the Iraq issue. I've talked to the leaders there. And there is a fundamental difference between my position and the position of my good friends here. I believe that it's a civil war. I believe that there is sectarian conflict already. There is enormous turmoil. 7 Americans died today. This is what I would do. I would have a resolution under Article 1 to deauthorize the war, to